We, the Mexican-American people, were dominated by a majority that was Anglo. I began to realize what other minority people had discovered, that the only answer, the only hope, was in organizing.
What is the American dream? Well, I think the stereotype is to have a house somewhere, right?
We really want to have a life where we have the freedom to create, the freedom to elaborate our own life, and in this way to design how we want to live and how the future for us and for the people around us, we want them to have.
A sense of social justice for everyone, right? A sense of opportunity for everyone.
It shouldn't be a dream, but that should be your right as a human being.
We're in the middle of a really awful war in Vietnam, and this war actually forced many people, Chicanos and not Chicanos alike, to protest.
Chicano was going to the war as a soldier, but more Chicanos were dying in Vietnam. Chicanos were protesting that as well, that we were, in essence, being used in the front lines of the Vietnam War. And then again, still being discriminated against at home. All those things had to do with the Chicano movement.
Racism and segregation was legal. It could deny you to eat in a restaurant, to go to a theater, to go to the library.
How they segregated Latinos or Mexicanos was because they would say that they were not clean. They were clean, they were bilingual, they would hold classes back.
Chicanos finally become frustrated with that. And the Chicano finally decides at that point then that instead of trying to be an American, we need to try to create our own image of ourselves. We need to try to create our own identity to determine our own futures, to determine our own strength, to determine our own image, our own identity. And that's really why the Chicano movement starts in the 1960s.
They wanted their history to be told.
In 1962, the United Farm Workers Union was founded with Cesar Chavez as the president. The UFW's main goal was to achieve better working conditions for farm laborers. It was when Chavez encouraged farmers to fight for their rights in peaceful ways, using walkouts, strikes, and boycotts, that the organization was able to launch a real effort in pursuit of these dreams of equity.
Trying to accomplish something and being a pacifist about it and doing it a very nice, positive way, kind of like Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi.
Many workers continued to die from exposure to agriculture, chemicals, and other horrific working conditions. Many lost their freedoms and families when they protested and were put into jail. Many workers continued struggling to survive the hunger and horrific living conditions that they faced on a daily basis. But they always stayed together, and together they fought peacefully for what all humans deserved.
The UFW is an organization that's made up of two different groups. One of them was a group of farm workers that were primarily Chicanos, which was the National Farm Workers Association. The other group was a group of farm workers who were primarily Filipino, and they were called the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. Those two groups are the ones who created the UFW, and it was those two groups that did the whole Great Boycott. The Great Boycott of 1965 created better working conditions for farm workers, it created better wages for farm workers, it created the right for farm workers to be unionized or to be recognized as a union.
As Chicano artists, we took certain leadership. We said, well, enough of that, we're not going to ask anymore. They don't give us the answer, you know? Yeah, we want peace, you know? Hey. But you don't even want to deal with us. How could you? So we said, forget it. We got to have peace, and we took it over. We just went at it and started painting.
What Cesar Chavez did with the farm worker movement was he invited Chicano artists. He invited artists, musicians, painters, poets, playwrights, actors. He invited them to be a part of the farm workers movement also.
We started painting those murals at Chicano Park in 1973.
Each mural has something in particular that it deals with. There's no real books that tell our story, so we want to make sure we put our story on there.
But from the very beginning, we try to talk to the city, the county, the state, maybe even the federal. We want to paint these murals on the pillars. and we need to negotiate with this, and what do you think about it?
Being an artist, you put yourself out and express your feelings, and then you get feedback from other people, and so you start learning who you are. And I don't know if you can understand me, but once you know better who you are, it sort of makes you stronger as an individual.
It allows the Chicano community then to use culture, or let's call it nationalism, to unite itself and then to work under different causes.
In 1968, Chicano students came together to start a protest in Los Angeles against the unfair conditions and limited opportunities they face within the public education system. Chicano students protested by walking out of high schools to draw attention towards the rights that they deserve and to change negative perception of the Chicano race. They found walkouts to be a powerful, peaceful tool to influence people about their demands for education and other opportunities.
Because they were demanding better education. They wanted people that looked like them, that taught information that they could understand.
Education is liberation.
So they were complaining about not enough Latino or Chicano teachers in the high schools. They were complaining about how the Chicano students were being treated in the high schools. So those walkouts had directly to do with the conditions in the high schools for the Chicano students.
Education as opposing to schooling. Schooling is a process that when the teacher just tells you what to do. Say, learn from this book and we're going to test you on this. As opposed to education is more relevant. Education is you are empower yourself. You learn what you want to learn, but also the learning is relevant to your lives. Okay, so once you get that concept of education, you improve yourself.
They took a stand. They took a risk. Kind of like Rosa Parks. She took a risk. She sat down, made demands. Sometimes you have to do that to get to where you want to go.
It was a movement that in a lot of ways reacted against the society.
Although the Chicano movement accomplished many of its goals, in today's society, Chicanos still face many obstacles that serve to reinforce discrimination against them. The Arizona immigration law, also known as the SB 1070, requires police officers to detain people they reasonably suspect are in the country without authorization and to verify their status with federal officials. The law also makes it a state crime to not carry immigration papers, and it allows people to sue local government agency if they suspect federal or state immigration law is not being enforced.
It should be the right of every human being to be able to have a family, to not be separated from your family because of laws.
In addition, Alabama has recently passed a law known as HB 56. This law gives police officers similar permission to ask for immigration papers and affects students by requiring an entire family to present papers before their students can be accepted at certain schools. People who have been working hard for years faces additional obstacle towards developing themselves as contributing members of society they live in.
You know, we have here a majority of Chicanos, and in the supervisor board of the county, they're all white. And
It's not a white country anymore. And that's why they're afraid. So that's why, to try to defend themselves, they're trying to make all these laws.
we are here. You got to deal with us. We're not foreigners. We're Americans. Chicanos.
Cuando canto mi canción, quiero inspirar mi gente con una solución. Cuando despierto en la mañana, sé que tengo el poder para un día triunfar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.